Why do it at all? Haven't you got enough on your plate?
Yep, absolutely. We've got enough on our plate. But assets like what Tethyan has put together come available very rarely. And so it was one of those things where you think, right, well, it's time to do it. Yes, it means some dilution for our shareholders, but give it, 6 or 12 months and that won't be dilutive. It'll be very accretive.
Welcome to Crux Investor. First of all, thanks so much for watching this video. If you like it, please give us a thumbs up, much appreciated. And do leave your comments below. Helps us understand the sorts of questions you'd like us to be asking, how you think we did during the interview, and of course, what you think of the company. If you haven't already done so, please click the button in the corner of the screen to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And of course, for more videos like this, click the notification bell. We spoke earlier today to Paul Cronin, CEO of Adriatic Metals. They've announced recently the proposed takeover of Tethyan Resource Corp. They're an operation in Serbia, just down the road from Bosnia, where Paul operates from. We ask him why he's doing it. Is this the right time? Should he be concentrating on his own projects? He answers us in detail about that and what comes with the package that they're proposing. Obviously, they've got cash, which solves quite a few problems for Tethyan. Take a look in the description below at some of the other topics we get through and see what the Batman has to say. Anything that you are interested in particular, click on the relevant timestamp and that'll take you to that part of the video. Enjoy what Paul has to say. Hello, Paul. How are you doing, sir?
Matthew, very well. Yourself?
Not bad, not bad. Been eating any bats recently?
No. You look like you've been giving a couple of government briefings on coronavirus, though.
I'm a very formal guy. I'm a very formal guy. I like my routine. Why don't we had a great conversation back at the beginning of April, but just for people who may have missed that, can you give us that 1 minute overview of the business and we'll pick it up from there?
Yeah, I mean, Adriatic Metals, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and about to expand into Serbia. High-grade polymetallic project. We've pushed it through from acquisition in 2017 through to quite near to pre-feasibility, and we'll be looking at starting construction on the project in Q2 next year.
Okay, fine. So I think for people who've not aware of your company, they can go back to the interview we did on the 8th of April and they can talk about that. But we're here today to talk about Tethyan Resource Corp acquisition. So they need, I think, shareholder sign off, but as far as you're concerned, that's pretty much a done deal, is it?
Oh, look, I hope so. I think what we've proposed to Tethyan will see a lot of value for Tethyan shareholders. Firstly, we've provided them the funding that they need to complete on the acquisition of the Izvak and Substaci assets, which will happen this week. We've provided additional funding for them to crack on and do the confirmation drilling on all of those historical holes that run to the northwest of their current drilling. I think what Fabian and his team have managed to achieve there is quite remarkable. And there was just those two little blocks inside that figure of 8 license that they didn't have. And when Tethyan announced that they'd acquired that, I had discussions with Fabian and Tethyan's major shareholder, and we managed to come to an arrangement, and I'm delighted. I think we have about 55% Tethyan shareholders have entered into voting support agreements, which is very positive. We have about 38% of their shareholders who've actually agreed not to sell Adriatic Stock for 6 months, or if the Adriatic share price on the ASX exceeds $2. So that's a pretty resounding support from the major holders and the directors and officers of the company. So we think, the transaction itself, because it's a Canadian scheme of arrangement or plan of arrangement, as they call it in Canada, it will require shareholder approval, will require court approval, and there are a number of other CPs that need to be met before it can close. But what we have agreed to do as part of that loan agreement with Tethyan is to say to them, right, well, if we're getting down to you're drilling away and the kitty's getting a bit light, we'll provide you with an extra 300,000 euros. to keep going. I'm pretty adamant, having reviewed the drill plan that was put together by Fabian Baker and Andrew Tunningley, that these guys can put a JORC resource or a 43-101 resource on Kizilbac, before the end of this calendar year.
Okay.
And that's what we're really trying to achieve.
Okay, but let's start with we'll get into the detail in a second, but let's get back to basics. Why do it at all? Haven't you got enough on your plate?
Yep, absolutely. We've got enough on our plate. But assets like what Tethyan have put together come available very rarely. I think the Kizilbac asset and Savstachi have a lot of potential for growth. And what we often see in our sector, is when someone discovers a great asset like we have at Rupert, that's definitely going to be a mine and will generate significant cash flow. We often see companies basically sit on that and they sort of bed it down and they get it into production. And then a couple of years later, halfway through their mine life, they go, gee, we need a pipeline asset. And as we know, these things take time. From discovery through to production is always a minimum of 4 or 5 years. And I think the average, as I saw in a mining journal article recently, is about 16 years. So my thinking and the board's thinking on this was we should always be looking out for assets. We wanted to position Adriatic as a Balkan regional player. Now, European born and bred mining company listed on the London Stock Exchange, European assets, operating in a region which sits slightly outside the EU, or sits outside the EU, but is still at the heart of Europe and highly prospective. And so we just saw this as a perfect opportunity to make that first move. It was a very, very cooperative deal between management and the major shareholders, where we all saw the value proposition and what could be done there. And so it was one of those things where you think, right, well, it's time to do it. Yes, it means some dilution for our shareholders at the end of the day, but give it 6 or 12 months, and that won't be dilutive. It'll be very accretive.
Okay, so let's talk about what you've got. Okay, you're acquiring a company, not an asset. It's much more complicated. You're doing a plan of arrangement with a TSX-V company. It's complicated. I imagine you've had a few late nights and a few early mornings. But how do you unbundle it? How do you make it cleaner than what you're looking at today?
Look, we will ultimately move the corporate structure back into our own corporate structure in the UK, so there won't be a Canadian presence. We've taken advice from BDO in Canada on how to do that. So the deal itself is structured in a way that facilitate that. We won't become a reporting issuer in Canada. And ultimately, it takes a little bit of time to move these things around into the right buckets. But we also want to keep the structure so if there are non-core assets there, that they can easily be joint ventured out or even disposed of.
Okay.
Because our primary focus really is Kizilbac and Savstachi.
Okay, fantastic. So let's talk about some of the people that may or may not come with this as well. You've got Richard Walker, you mentioned Fabian. You've got an existing operational team. So how much of that will you be retaining? Are you looking to streamline that? You've inherited a lot of data. So can you talk around how you're going to look at the asset and approach that?
Look, from the asset perspective, that's relatively straightforward. Tethyan will close on the acquisition of EFBP this week. They have a drill contractor lined up, and I expect they'll be drilling on that asset within 3 or 4 weeks. We will provide any assistance that they require there. We've obviously already agreed with the drilling plan that they have proposed. I think it's a very sensible one that's been proposed by Andrew Tunningley. If they need additional resources, we have staff who live in Serbia who could easily go down there and help them out. Particularly, we're looking at the potential for COVID-type disruptions again. where we believe that some of our staff who are Serbian and live in Serbia may be better positioned to go down there and help their team do that if necessary, and if they need it. I think in terms of that team, you've got some real talent there. So you've got Veljko Kulovic, who's the managing director for Tethyan in Serbia. Veljko was ex-Nevsun and did all the permitting and land access arrangements for Nevsun prior to the acquisition by Zinjan Mining. So he's got a great skill set that we're looking forward to working with him. You've got Andrew Cunningley, who's the exploration manager at Tethyan, knows those assets extremely well and has a wealth of knowledge about them, which will become invaluable to us. But when you start, and then obviously Fabian. Now, Fabian's going to be joining us in a senior role as a corporate development manager. In addition to being a competent geologist, Fabian's also got a very good reputation in Serbia and in the region. A knowledge of projects there that we think will augment to the knowledge that we have and help us to identify further opportunities in the future. So I think those three key people, we're very much looking forward to them coming into our business. There are other staff involved in the company as well that in the Belgrade office that will be retained. But we see an opportunity here for some of our young geologists in Bosnia to come and work potentially in Serbia for periods of time. For Andrew and some of his staff to come to Bosnia and understand Rupert's and what we're doing there. I think, we're going to start seeing a workforce that will be interchanging on those projects. We have quite rigid data collection, logging procedures and whatnot that we would look to try and roll out. But ultimately, this is two companies that I think were probably meant to be together at some point in time, and Fabian and I have a shared vision of what that can be.
Okay, so I'm kind of interested in the economies, the savings that can be done, because obviously Tethyan, their share price is about a third of what it was at the beginning of the year. They've, ended the year with not a lot of cash. I mean, I imagine they'll be quite grateful that you came along with the cash to allow them to complete the acquisitions, but surely there must be some optimization that you're also going to be able to do here rather than just pure growth by throwing cash at it.
Yeah, no, there will be rationalisation of some of Tethyan's corporate overhead. Obviously, they won't be having individual public company costs. They won't be requiring an office in Vancouver. There'll be less staff in Vancouver. Eventually no staff in Vancouver. So there will be some rationalisation of costs, definitely. But in terms of their core team, we largely intend to keep them on.
Okay, so let's talk about what else comes with this acquisition when it goes through. I think you're planning for this to be done sort of around August time. They've got a big shareholder, Augusta Group, in there who, are meaningful, very well known. Do they intend to stay?
Yep. Look, I don't know. I hope so. Look, I've had a number of discussions with Richard about this potential transaction over the last couple of months. He is a very successful man, and you can see why. We have talked extensively about Adriatic and what we're doing, and ultimately, whether he stays as a shareholder of Adriatic following the merger will be a decision for him and for his management team. But we would certainly welcome them.
Okay, and this has got to be more than just giving them money to start doing the things which they had hoped to do. You're saying you've looked at their plans, you think they're fairly robust, you're not going to meddle too much, or are you looking at, again, optimizing the way that they go about doing this? Because clearly the market wasn't liking the story, their story, or their version of the story previously. So what are you bringing to the table on that front?
Look, I'm not sure that the market didn't like their story. Markets sometimes behave irrationally, believe it or not. And I think, the picture that Fabian has put together was a very solid one. If you understand Serbia and you understand how hard it is to get good exploration licenses in Serbia, you will appreciate the hard work that was done there. There was obviously those two small parts of it that were missing. And I think that, Tethyan's share price responded positively to that. But perhaps the reality that the acquisition needed to be completed for EFPP. It was done at a time where I think the COVID crisis was probably at its peak globally. Perhaps there was some concerns by shareholders that may not be achievable. Irrespective, the vision that Fabian and I have for the combined company for Adriatic is one of creating that regional player. And that's why it was so important to me that Fabian came along with us and helps us continue to put that bigger picture together, over several years. There are some other synergistic benefits that we identified in doing the due diligence on Tethyan. There is some metallurgical synergies that can be used when blending concentrates at port. Obviously they have a fantastic database of information and knowledge of deposits in the region that we think would be invaluable to us as well.
Right. Okay. And do you think this is, you just need to throw cash at this to unlock it? In which case, can you accelerate their process, their plan? Because obviously you're putting a lot in the ground with your own projects.
Well, sure we are, but over the course of this year at Adriatic, we have had some disruptions because of COVID with respect to logistics, particularly. That means that we're tracking about 16 or 17% behind in the number of meters we expected to drill as at the end of April. But also, as I mentioned to you earlier, we found one of the impacts of COVID has actually been a positive one, where we've been able to supplement sort of higher cost consultants with lower cost consultants in Bosnia, and we're not seeing any change in quality of work. And as a result of that, we're actually tracking about $2 million under budget for the year. Essentially, that $2 million is going to be allocated to the Kizilbac asset straight away. We'll then be putting in a further $2 million this year. So our total budget for this year, including all corporate overhead and everything to absorb Tethyan, will be about 4 million Australian dollars. It means that, yes, those assets will be advanced, but I think one of the key advantages, we kind of know, if you believe the historical information, and I do, when we took over Vareš, we didn't have any recent drilling at all. Tethyan have put drill holes along strike and have been able to do a limited amount of confirmation drilling. So I'm very, very confident in the data we've reviewed and what resources are there. But one of the big advantages of those assets is their location. One, it's in Serbia and it has a mining code that's quite familiar to us who've operated in more Western jurisdictions. But two, the area of those deposits has been designated under the spatial plan in Serbia as a mining jurisdiction, which means the whole permitting process can be relatively brisk. And that then gives us a bit of optionality as we're looking at Rupica through the PFS process, and we're looking at Vareš and how we do deal with that, as to whether we can sort of maximize some synergies there. One is, can we take the development team that we're going to be building in Bosnia and literally send them 200 Ks across the border into Serbia to build that project? Because when you're building up all of those core skills, you don't want to lose them when you go into production. Two, is there are likely to be some synergies in terms of the way we're currently looking at Vareš. In our scoping study, we said Vareš was a project that was a much lower priority, but we wanted extensive mine life, so we'll mine Rupica first, and then we'll push Rupica to the back end, Vareš to the back end. What we're now seeing is the potential to pre-concentrate Viervacha. One of the unique but very positive problems that we have at Rupice is we're kind of short of backfill. We don't have any tailings. So we need to generate waste rock. And an easy way of doing that is mine the higher grade ores that are at the surface of the Viervacha pit, put them through the Rupice processing plant with the Rupice ores, and you're generating additional waste rock which can be used. That then presents some benefits on how we may be able to look at the timing of concentrates and concentrate sales into the market. So we want to sell those concentrates by looking at blending both the Viervacha and the Kizilbac concentrates that we produce, because they do have quite different metallurgical properties.
Okay, I'm interested in the way that you constructed the deal. Obviously, you've paid a premium, but it's all in paper, and the money that you are spending is going in the ground. So I do like that. Do you think that makes you a more or a less attractive takeover target? Because there is talk in the market about some people had been looking at you. I know you're not keen yet, but what do you think this has done for you in terms of putting yourself up there?
Look, that's a difficult question, actually. I'd sort of try and answer it this way. We don't regard ourselves as a takeover target. We're not talking, we're not walking around saying, here we are, come and get us. Our total business approach, our total strategy, and I think the acquisition of Tethyan really demonstrates that strategy, is we see ourselves as a producer with a specific focus on the Balkans and homegrown in Europe. I think that first mover advantage that we've got in Bosnia, we'll be able to capitalise on through looking at new licenses in Bosnia. I think the relationship that Tethyan have, and in particular that Fabian has and Belko have in Belgrade, is also going to be a very positive thing for us. As we spend more time in the Balkans and we start to understand the people and we form those networks and relationships, we're seeing more opportunities present themselves. So we're not a takeover target. Yes, we have a large shareholder, a corporate shareholder in Sandfire. But I think if Sandfire wanted to buy us, they would have bought us at 60 cents rather than where we are now.
Are they happy with what you've just done?
Look, I haven't managed to speak to them. I put a call into the CEO of Sandfire yesterday. I'm hoping to speak with him over the next couple of days. They're obviously pretty busy at the moment. They've had some success in North America in terms of getting their record of decision on the project in Montana, and judging by some of their public announcements, they're having quite a lot of exploration success in Botswana. So I can understand that he hasn't returned my call yet.
I hope that's the reason. Last question. Good news. Cash. So yes, please. You are spending a little bit more money on Tethyan, obviously. Which, when we spoke before, you said you're fully funded through to BFS on your own projects. Is this going to impact your ability to get through to BFS with your cash flow, or are you going to need to raise some more capital at some point this year?
No, we're going to get through. We've looked at this very closely. When you're doing exploration drilling, you can say how many meters you want to do in the program, but if you're still hitting, you're going to do more meters. I think if we do need to raise more money, it will be because of continued exploration success. However, if we just stuck to the plans that we have for the 20,000 meters in Bosnia and the initial 3,000 meters of confirmation drilling in Serbia, we have sufficient cash resources to take us through, and we are currently receiving some pretty chunky VAT refunds as well, which will make our cash balance look a bit better.
Okay. Well, Paul, thanks for the update. Great move by you, I think, in terms of consolidation in the region. We like that. And
In 6 months, I hope you drop the "I think" qualification.
well, yeah, exactly. Well, that's the point. That's the point. You you obviously, like I say, it's pretty hard work. We're doing these acquisitions, in terms of, especially when there's such a significant time zone difference. But you hopefully get this done before August or in August or before. Let us know how you get on, and then it's a case of that news flow. Keep us up to date.
Yeah, will do. No, I think. This COVID-19 crisis created a lot of headaches for people, but it also creates opportunities. And I recall from the 2008 financial crisis, I can't remember which fund manager it was in the US, who said, it's these points in time, you've got to decide whether you want to be a lion or a lamb. And we made that choice.
Indeed.